College football addiction. Welcome back, Tennessee fans, NC State fans, if you're watching this too. A rough one for you guys last night. Tennessee looks like they're finally for real. And I know they had a good year a couple of years ago, but finally looks like they absolutely have all of the pieces to be a really, really good team. It's just 2 games into the season, but man, they looked good. There's nowhere else to start but with other than starting with Nico. He looks like he doesn't look like he's starting his 3rd game, right? Like he doesn't look like he's essentially a freshman, right? You know, and I know he played last year. I get it. But he's poised. He is absolutely so calm under pressure. Not that he saw much pressure from NC State last night, but man, we had Sports Talk Jay on. And if you're a Tennessee fan, hit the subscribe button. We're going to get Jay back on and chat with him. If you're a fan of his channel, he does a phenomenal job, and I appreciate you guys for tuning in. But we're going to get him back on to talk more because they've got some big games coming up. Obviously, you know about Oklahoma. I got to get him on the Florida week. You see my shirt. You see the background. You understand why. But then Georgia, Alabama, they play some massive ones this year. And it's all set up for Tennessee. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Let's talk more about the game. Nico looked phenomenal. Not perfect. Had a couple of picks. I get it. That's fine. He's a gunslinger. He's a baller. He's a young kid. He's going to make mistakes. That's okay. He makes up for it. Again, super poised. Listen, for all the throws, which he had some dimes, he absolutely came out and balled out. The touchdown that he just strolls into the end zone, that was the most calm, cool, collected, under pressure. Do me a favor, Tennessee fans. Comment your favorite play right now, but that was my favorite play of the game. Wasn't even close. I mean, obviously the pick six had you super hyped. There were a lot of really good things that you saw in this game. But, man, I guess in my eye. Tennessee looked phenomenal. And really just every aspect of the game. But it all started with the quarterback. And I don't know how many people were pitting this as a McCall and Nico battle. Nico's the guy, right? And he is absolutely the truth. It's hard for me to not imagine that he's about a top 5 quarterback in the SEC right now. Obviously, you're going to put, Dart up there. You're going to put Ewers up there. Georgia. And Nico's up there. He feels like he belongs in that group. Now, I'm not saying that he's above those guys. I'm not saying that he's number 1. That's not my take. But in a league with a lot of good quarterback play, he seems like he's up there. Tennessee's defense, absolutely legit. I don't know what we really expected from NC State. I don't want to rag on them too much, but people were saying, like in the YouTube comments of the Sports Talk J video that we did, which if you haven't watched it and you're a Tennessee fan, I'll link it at the end. You need to go back and watch it. I know it was a preview video, but everything he said, he hit on. So if you're not already subscribed to Sports Talk J, you need to go do that because he's fantastic and he got everything right. His one concern that he had didn't end up being a concern. But man, he was so confident coming into this game, and it really made me feel like Tennessee was the lock of the week. Sometimes you get people on and they're homers, and that's why they're confident. Sports Talk Jay, like he wasn't even really, I don't even really feel like he was that excited because he was so confident how good this team was going to be. The defense was phenomenal. NC State, again, I don't know what we expected. There were people in the comments of that video saying that they were just kind of sandbagging or they didn't put anything into that Western Carolina game, and they were going to play better against Tennessee. All this stuff, I don't know that I bought that. I was interested to see how things went. Man, what they didn't have 150 yards total offense. They had 11 drives, and that's averaging less than about 12 yards a drive. They were just not good in any aspect, defensively, offensively. Their 10 points came off of turnovers. It's a little unfair. The field goal, they did drive about 40 yards after the turnover. But, man, they were awful. The pick six, obviously that's a nice moment in a game that's already been decided, I guess. NC State they've got a tough road ahead. They've got some really tough games. Clemson, they got to play Clemson, who looked really good last week. They got to play Georgia Tech. They got to play North Carolina, obviously, at the end of the year. Tennessee, looks like they're climbing up the mountain, and NC State looks like they're in free fall from it. NC State looks like a bowl would kind of be what their ceiling is this year. Now it's just 2 weeks. Things can turn around. Maybe Tennessee's even more legit than we realize, and NC State's not that bad. But McCall just doesn't look like the same guy that he was at Coastal. That's no shot at him. That's not a personal attack. I don't know him, but man, he can't get anything done. He's got no time. First of all, obviously that defensive line from Tennessee was really good, but then he's just not confident. It feels like they don't trust him to throw the ball. I don't know what's happened there, but he just doesn't feel like the same guy. NC State fans, if you're watching this, if you can stomach college football content this morning, which I know sometimes I can't after a bad loss, I'd love to know what your thoughts are. What has happened with McCall? Because if this is the performance you're going to get out of him week to week, I just don't even know if it's worth playing him. I think you'd be better off just playing somebody else, and maybe that's a tough decision that Doran has to make at some time. I like some of their pieces. I like some others. I like Concepcion. They just don't have enough. They don't have enough to compete with what I think is a legitimate top 10, 15 team in Tennessee. I don't know exactly where they'll fall. It's tough to base rankings on 2 games, one against a really undermanned opponent and then one against a really bad opponent. No offense to NC State. But I think you played a legitimately top 15 team, top 10 team, maybe in Tennessee, maybe better, as we see the season go along. And, it's tough to see NC State competing with anybody of that caliber. Even Clemson, even what Clemson did yesterday to App State, I think that it looks like Clemson could just beat the absolute tar out of them. Sampson's the truth. The way he ran yesterday for Tennessee, absolutely effortless. He looked really, really good. And at the end of the day, the big takeaway here is that Josh Heupel, it feels like he's got this thing moving in the right direction. You've got a coach right now who is finally in Knoxville a really, really good coach. You've run through him, right? And you've run through the cycle and hire this guy, fire this guy, hire this guy, fire this guy. And we don't have to name every single coach, right? You don't have to name, and I'm not trying to dog people, but for all the guys that you struggle with, it feels like you finally have the right guy at the helm and have things moving in the right direction. What I feel like as an outsider, Tennessee has kind of been known for is letdowns early. And they even had that last year. You lose to Florida early. You lose games early that you shouldn't in previous years. And then they'd finish strong. They'd have good finishes to the year. And what they've done, and I know that quarterback play had a lot to do with that last year. But what they've done this year is they have absolutely taken no prisoners to start the year. And they've said, no, we're going to start strong. And let me tell you something. If they go on the road in 2 weeks, and I know I said in the preview I screwed that up, but if Josh goes home in 2 weeks and goes on the road and beats Oklahoma, which they look terrible against Temple, and I'm not convinced that they've got an answer at quarterback, they certainly will not win the quarterback battle against Tennessee. That will still be a very lit place. That team will still very much get up for that game. I don't know that they'll get up for it as much as the fans will, because the fans will remember Josh there in Oklahoma. The kids don't, right? Most of them probably not even alive. Certainly they didn't remember. But that could be a really, really lit game. And at this point, I expect Tennessee to go on the road and win that. From what I've seen in 2 games, we'll have another data point to look at next week. Oklahoma plays a tough Tulane team. If Tennessee goes on the road and win that, I think they're a playoff team. The only possible losses I see, unless Tennessee just absolutely stubs their toe, the only possible losses that I see for Tennessee are Oklahoma, Georgia, and Alabama. Right now, you've got landmines, right? Lagway looked good for Florida, and if he goes off, but he's a true freshman. You can't be losing that game. There are other teams on the schedule that could beat you if you don't play up. But if Tennessee plays their game, there are 3 possible losses, and if they beat Oklahoma, then there are just 2 possible losses. And I'm not convinced that they lose either one of them just yet. Georgia does look good to start. I'm not saying they beat Georgia. Alabama had a good 4th quarter. They didn't look great against USF. But if they can find a way to beat Oklahoma, I think they're bound for the playoffs. Now, they got some work to do. That doesn't mean you're a lock. You don't get your invite in week 4. but I think the way their schedule sets up, I think the way that this team is built, I think the way they're built defensively in the trenches, they dominated NC State. I think this team will eventually make the playoffs. Got to go get it done, though. Got to win this weekend, get over the kind of gimme game, and then Oklahoma in a couple of weeks. Two teams that, again, seem like they're heading in opposite directions. NC State fans, I wish I had more hope to offer you. It looks rough. You won't play many teams better than Tennessee, I will say that. But, man, they weren't even close tonight. It was kind of the lock of the week, I felt like, and couldn't understand why the spread was so close. I thought Tennessee had a really good chance to win this thing going away, and they did. So, Tennessee fans, NC State fans, thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys watching College Football Addiction. Again, would love to have you as a subscriber on the channel as we continue to talk about your teams throughout the year.